Something I wanted to ask you about though, because you mentioned something that made me think of it is, I'm sure you reflect on the interesting and kind of strange, at least thematic commonalities between the blockchain and Christianity, right? I'm sure you've given this thought. I would love to hear, like, what do you make of that?
That's a good question. Well, I think
if people don't know what I'm talking about, you mentioned like sacrifice, for instance, it's like built on sacrifice. Sacrifice is very important in Christianity. We could probably riff on a few more, but I'm just curious what you think.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of parallels. People say Bitcoin is a new religion. And I do think it has a certain faith and fervor to it that you would need to drive this kind of ambitious project to its completion. But it's like the idea of there being something beyond, something transcendent, like something objective, something other than, this world that we have made for ourselves, like the ability to escape ourselves. Like that is in traditional Christian theology, like everything is creation except for one thing, which is God. This is maybe getting a little too, I don't want to get too heretical here, but there is this hunger for something that is beyond ourselves. And I think that objectivity that Bitcoin offers gives you something of that, like something solid that you can actually base your reality on. And for it to be solid, it has to be beyond manipulation. And because otherwise, we can't tell if anything is real. This is Descartes' argument for the existence of God. He's like, if there wasn't a God, we'd just all be insane.
Like there needs to be one thing that is not vulnerable to manipulation by humans.
Yes.
Or else everything could be manipulation by humans. And then you endless cycling.
Now in the limit, Bitcoin is not impervious. Maybe with enough energy, it is not invincible. It's just the closest thing. So maybe it's a tool of the objective rather than objectivity itself.
Right. There's this idea of like a 51% attack, right? If you have 51% of the hashing power, you could theoretically like
over a long
counterfeit
period of time. Yes.
Do you think do you take that seriously? Like, could that happen? Do you think could China like actually orchestrate that, or how do you see that?
I mean, a nation state at this phase, with pouring, something like right now, it probably cost them something on the order, if they wanted to do it quickly, something in the tens to hundreds of billions of dollars to create a forged blockchain. But over time that recedes.
Like over time, it gets more and more expensive.
It's more and more expensive over time. And right now, I don't know if they have the will to do that, and if they do, I don't know if they really get out of it besides poisoning the well for Bitcoin. And we can switch to a different hashing algorithm. We can try to outrun them and fight them until we get a chain that is secure against them. But the other things that are interesting parallels between Bitcoin and Christianity, I would say, is that the history of schism and forks is there. Like we have religious wars and disagreements. So we had the schisms of basically change happens through schism. No, through consensus or a schism if consensus cannot be reached.
Right.
Which is very much the practice that happened in Christianity, in the development of Christianity. In the traditional church way before modern times, we had the 7 ecumenical councils that sort of defined the building blocks of Christianity. And in the West, we sort of round off and say the church was one and accepted the 7 ecumenical councils till 1054 AD. However, that is not true, because there were some smaller sects that did break off and are still around in sort of the Middle East, further eastern parts of the Middle East, like Syria, and going out to sort of kind of all the stuff in that area that you don't remember the name to. But they were small, so we kind of like rubbed them out of history. But in the 4th Ecumenical Council, there was a group of people that did not agree with a formula that was accepted to describe Jesus Christ's dual natures of being fully divine and fully human. And so they rejected the council. Well, a council is like a software patch. And you have to be running the latest software patch. You have to be running the latest protocol to communicate in the network. So they're out of the network. And so they forked. And that's very much like the BCH and BSV forks off of Bitcoin. And I will say, The Bitcoin main chain reminds me a lot of Orthodoxy, and in that it is a Christian Orthodoxy, and that it's very conservative. Like for any protocol change, they have made the decision to only update through soft forks, except for in the case of like breaking security bugs. So that means that each update to the Bitcoin protocol must be backwards compatible with all previous transactions. A soft fork narrows the range of appropriate transactions going forward. And that's how theology developed in the Orthodox and Catholic Church to an extent. Back in the day, is everyone believed something, and then as you progress into the future, people would come up with alternative elaborations that were backwards compatible with all the previous beliefs, but that were in conflict with each other. And so then you have a council, and you have to choose one of these two incompatible but backwards compatible beliefs. Mm-hmm. And so that's how the Christian doctrine was developed, always backwards compatible. But it was also this kind of consensus thing where, contra the Romans, there wasn't really one guy in charge like Vitalik. It was sort of this thing where you kind of had to get this consensus of all the bishops that were important. And some of them had bigger mouths than others and had a bigger say than others just through the force of their personality. Uh-huh. And it's very much like that in Bitcoin.
It's so fascinating. I could listen to you talk about this all night. I love this stuff.
Okay.
If you're interested in this, go subscribe to Jacob's channel. He talks about this kind of stuff. He's a much better and more educated Christian than I am. I put his link to his YouTube channel in the show notes. So go subscribe. Because that's fire. This is fire, dude.
I'm a really bad Christian, but I know a little bit.
But this is fire. I could talk to you all night about this. So in your model then, so basically like Jesus is analogous to Satoshi. You think the Orthodox Church is equivalent to the Bitcoin main chain, BTC. So what is the Roman Catholic Church then in your model?
It doesn't quite fit because it's not a schism from Bitcoin, but I think Vitalik and Ether is much more Roman Catholic.
Right. I could see that.
Because there is like a figurehead that has, he's not just a figurehead, he has a lot of influence and authority. Yeah. And if he's really passionate about a change, it will happen. Ex cathedra, Vitalik will speak. And also might anger some of our Roman Catholic viewers, but they're a little bit more radical in how they update things. It's not always backwards compatible.
Interesting.
So, for example,
right.
the Roman Catholic Church dogmatized the belief in the Assumption of the Virgin Mary. And a lot of Catholics previously had believed that, like past Catholics, which is that Mary was bodily assumed, I believe, before her death, like just lifted up into heaven, like she disappeared, went up to heaven. But some Catholics in the past did not believe that. And so now this is a breaking protocol upgrade. You have invalidated past believers, past transactions. And that's something, in Orthodoxy we don't do.
Interesting.
So we don't have actually a dogma on that particular topic.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I totally see what you're saying. I was also going to add to that
but Ethereum does that.
Right. And also Ethereum is much better than Bitcoin in its ability to basically invite other people to develop things on the blockchain in interesting and kind of creative, arguably regional ways, which is what you see with the Catholic Church, I think, more so than the Orthodox Church, probably. Or not to say there's no, but basically the Catholic Church has probably excelled a bit more than the Orthodox Church in basically making a globally spreadable, but nonetheless unified kind of institution, right? There's like the Latin American Catholic churches have a very different vibe and style and tendencies than the European ones. So I wonder if there's a connection there that
Yeah, I think so. And just like the Bitcoin Core people, like Orthodox people can be a little ornery. And I think we have higher barriers. Like we're more purist. Whereas like we look at like some of the Roman Catholic practices that they've used to like spread their church to other parts of the world. And we're like, that smells like possibly errorful code to us. Like we're not willing to be that flexible.
Right. Whereas Ethereum has tried to create a kind of globally developable blockchain that allows like different developers to do different types of things, but to plug in and be interoperable on the same like interface, which is arguably like what the Catholic Church has done relatively well.
Yeah, I think the Catholic Church certainly has been more flexible in evangelizing the world, and also more successful at it. But to finish my analogy, sorry. All the altcoins out there are Protestantism. Everyone, anyone has their own vision, and they're like, "Here's a new coin," and that's definitely Protestant. But yeah,
nice. Back. No, that's a perfect like finishing touch on that whole narrative. I totally see it.
That's my architecture.
I guess